rather than someone who gets things done, as I did when I was housing minister and the rent was only $973 a month for the average family right across the country, and the average house price was roughly $400,000. That's results. There was less talk, there was less government spending, but far more homes. And that's what our common sense plan will do again. Build the homes by requiring municipalities speed up, permit more land, and more building faster. They will be required to permit 15% more homes per year as a condition of getting federal funding, and to permit high-rise apartments around every federally funded transit station. We will sell off 6,000 federal buildings, thousands of acres of federal land to build. We'll get rid of the carbon tax to lower the cost of building materials. And finally, we will reward the working people who build homes, because we need more boots, not more suits. We'll pass the common sense conservative law that allows trades workers to write off the full cost of transportation, food, and accommodation to go from one work site to another, so that they can build the homes while bringing home paychecks for themselves. Madam Speaker, these homes will be in safe neighborhoods. We will stop the crime. We will stop the crime by making repeat violent offenders ineligible for bail, parole, or house arrest. That will mean no more catch and release. We will repeal C5, the house arrest law. We will repeal C75, the catch and release law. And we will repeal C83, the cushy living for multiple murderers law that allows Paul Bernardo to enjoy tennis courts and skating rinks that most Canadian tax-paying families can no longer afford outside of prison. We will bring in jail, not bail for repeat violent offenders. We will repeal, in fact, the entire the catch and release criminal justice agenda that this radical Prime Minister, with the help of the loony left NDP, has brought in, Madam Speaker. The radical agenda that has turned many of our streets into war zones will be a thing of a past. We will also stop giving out deadly narcotics. We now, remember when I made a video about the so-called safe supply. I went to the tragic site of yet another homeless encampment in Vancouver, which used to be one of the most beautiful views in that spot in the entire world. Right now has been, unfortunately, a place where people live in squalor and where they die of overdoses. And everyone said it was just terrible that I was planning to take away the tax-funded drugs, and that all of the claims I made were just a bunch of conspiracy theories. Well, everything I said then has been proven accurate, every word of it. And I noticed that Liberals and the pointy-headed professors that they relied on for their policies have all gone into hiding as well. Why? Because the facts are now coming out. Even the public health agency in British Columbia, which has been pushing this NDP Liberal ideology, is admitting that the tax-funded hydromorphine is being diverted. The police in Vancouver said this week that 50% of all the high-powered hydromorphine opioids are paid for with tax dollars and given out by public health agencies, Madam Speaker, supposedly to save lives. Now we know that those very powerful drugs are being resold to children who are getting hooked on them, and the profits are being used to buy even more dangerous fentanyl and tranq and other drugs that are leaving our people face first on the pavement dying of record overdoses. The so-called experts that always say, ignore the bumper stickers, look at the facts. Well, the facts are in British Columbia, where this radical and incomparable policy has been most enthusiastically embraced. Overdose deaths are up 300%. They have risen in BC faster than anywhere else in Canada, and possibly anywhere else in North America. The state of Oregon, the ultra-progressive state of Oregon, has reversed decriminalization, recognizing the total chaos and death and destruction that the policy has caused. And what does this Prime Minister, this radical Prime Minister, with the help of his NDP counterpart do? They look at the death and destruction that has occurred in the downtown east side of Vancouver and in other communities, and they say, let's have more of that. Let's take that. They took a walk down the downtown east side, or better yet, they probably drove through in their limousines, their bulletproof limousines, these two politicians did. And they said, and they looked around at the people bent over as they were completely tranquilized by fentanyl. They saw the people lying face first on the ground. They saw the tents that the police would have pointed out are filled with dangerous guns and drugs. They saw all the small businesses that were shuttered by this policy, and they said, let's have more of that. Let's replicate all the policies that created it so that we can have tent cities and homeless encampments in every corner of the country. And that is exactly what they've done. In Halifax, there are 35 homeless encampments in one city, Madam Speaker, after 9 years of this Prime Minister, his NDP counterpart, and the Liberal mayor of Halifax. Look at every town in this country. You will find homeless encampments that never existed before the last 9 years. This policy will go down in infamy as one of the most insane experiments ever carried out on a population. Nowhere else in the world are they doing this. They gaslight. They love to say, oh, this is what all the civilized people believe, is that giving out these drugs will save lives. Nowhere else in the world is this done. In fact, when you tell people that it's happening, they have a hard time even believing it. What? Sorry, you're giving out heroin-grade drugs for free to addicts and expecting it's going to save lives? And now they spill into our hospitals, where nurses are told by the NDP government in BC and the Liberal government in Ottawa that they are not allowed to take away crack pipes or knives or guns. They're just supposed to expect someone is going to consume the drugs, have a massive fit, and start slashing up the hospital floor. Madam Speaker, this is something out of a bad hallucination, and a hallucination that will come to an end when I am Prime Minister. We will end this nightmare. And we will, Madam Speaker, we will also ensure that Canadians have a better way. We're not only going to ban the drugs, we're not only going to stop giving out taxpayer-funded drugs. We are going to provide treatment and recovery. If you were out there, if you are watching today and you're suffering from addiction and you don't know how you can turn your life around, I want you to know that there is hope. There is a better future ahead. We will put the money into beautiful treatment centers with counseling, group therapy, physical exercise, yoga, sweat lodges for First Nations, where people can graduate drug-free, live in nearby housing that helps them transition into a law-abiding drug-free life, come back to the center to get a counseling session, a workout, or maybe even to mentor an incoming addict on the hopeful future that is ahead. That is the way that we are going to bring our loved ones home drug-free. And as I always say, we are going to have a common sense dollar-for-dollar law requiring that we find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending. And in this case, that will include how we will partly pay for this. We will unleash the biggest lawsuit in Canadian history against the corrupt pharmaceutical companies that profited off of this nightmare. We will make them pay.
Here.
Finally, we will stop the gun crime. We know, Madam Speaker, the gun crime is out of control. Just yesterday, we saw this gold heist where we found out that, by the way, all the gold thieves, they're out on bail already. Not to worry. They'll have to send this Prime Minister a nugget of gold to thank him for passing C-75 and letting them out of jail within a few days of this monster gold heist. We knew that why did they steal the gold? So that they could buy the guns. Because we know that all the gun crime is happening with stolen guns. See, the Prime Minister wants to ban all civilian law-abiding people from owning guns, but he wants to allow every criminal to have as many guns as they want. And I'm not just talking about rifles. I'm talking about machine guns, fully loaded machine guns that are being found on the the street that never existed since they were banned in the 70s. But now the criminals can get them because the Prime Minister has mismanaged the federal borders and ports, and because he's wasting so much money going after the good guys. He wants to ban your hunting rifle. He said so in a December 2022 interview with CTV. It was very clear. If you have a hunting rifle, he will have to take it away. And he kept his word by introducing a 300-page amendment to his Bill C-21, which would have banned 300 pages of the most popular and safe hunting rifles. He only put that policy on hold because of a backlash that common sense conservatives led that included rural Canadians, First Nations Canadians, NDPers from rural communities like yours, Madam Speaker, had to flip-flop. I know that in places like Kapuskasing, the law-abiding people enjoy hunting, and we know that while your leader and the Prime Minister look down on those people and think that they are to blame for crime, we know that the hunters in Kapuskasing are the salt of the earth. They're the best people around, and we're going to make sure that they can keep their hunting rights. God love them. God love them. God love every one of them. Madam Speaker, while the Prime Minister wants to protect turkeys from hunters, common sense conservatives want to protect Canadians from criminals. And that is why we will repeal his insane policies. By the way, I should point out, he hasn't actually done any of the bans. Remember, he had that big press conference during the election, and he said to his policy team that morning, I need you to come up with a policy that will allow me to put a big, scary-looking black gun on my podium sign. And then they said, okay, we'll think of something. And he put that scary-looking gun on his podium sign. And he said, well, I'm going to ban all of these assault rifles. Well, they asked him, what is an assault rifle? He said, well, I don't know, but it's that black scary thing on the front of my podium sign is the assault rifle we're referring to. And all these years later, it's now, what is it, 3 years later since he made the promise? He was asked again in the hallways, what is an assault rifle? Well, I'm still working to figure it out, he says. So these rifles that he says he's going to ban one day, he doesn't know what they are, but one day he's going to figure it out and he's going to ban them. In the meantime, he has spent $40 million to buy exactly 0 guns from owners. He said that he was going to ban them and buy them from the owners. Not one gun has been taken off the street. $40 million. Madam Speaker, we could have used that money to hire CBSA officers who would have secured our ports against the thousands of illegal guns that are pouring in and killing people on our streets. When I'm Prime Minister, we will cancel this multi-billion-dollar waste of money. We will use it to hire frontline boots on the ground who will inspect those shipping containers and scanners that can pierce inside to stop the drugs, stop the illegal guns, stop the export of our stolen cars, stop the crime. Yeah. Madam Speaker, what you're seeing here is a very different philosophical approach. The finance minister said in her concluding remarks that what we need is a bigger and stronger government. Doesn't that sound eerie? A bigger and, in other words, she and he want to be bigger and stronger, right? And that's why they're always trying to make Canadians feel weaker and smaller. He literally called our people a small, fringe minority. He jabs his fingers in the faces of our citizens. He calls small businesses tax cheats. He claims hunters are just Americans. If you own a hunting rifle, you're just an American. He points his fingers at people who disagree with him. He has the audacity of claiming anyone who is offside with him is a racist. This guy who dressed up in racist costumes so many times, he can't remember them all. He's been denigrating other people his whole life. That's because it's all about him. It's all about concentrating more power and more money in his hands. This budget is no different.